and welcome to the Cougar Proud Podcast. This is Greg Woods, WSU beat writer for the Spokesman Review, joined as always by Jamey of CougFan.com, and we got to jump right into a basketball game that unfolded last night in San Francisco, where WSU dropped an 85-80 decision to San Francisco. So we're going to lead off with that. We also have a few more additions out of the portal for the football team, 5 more since we last spoke. So we will get into that. That brings them up to close to 30 out of the portal at least. So that's all kind of coming together. And then we will also kind of start to wrap that up. The portal is closed now, at least for guys going into the portal. So we kind of have a clear picture of, what their haul is looking like. And then we also have Julian Duggar re-signing with the football team as well, a quarterback. So we might have a third straight quarterback battle to cover here at Washington State. So we'll get into all that, and not as many players to cover in terms of out of the portal. Thank God, because that was an insane couple of weeks. But why don't we start with the basketball game? Like I mentioned last night, 85-80 was the final margin in favor of San Francisco. The Cougars dropped to 8-12 overall, 3-4 in WCC play. And we should just jump into the very end. So like I was mentioning before we even started the record, they take a lead of 4 points on a wide open three from John Morton. And with, I believe, 2.5 minutes to go, did not score the rest of the game. Meanwhile, USF closes the game on a 9-0 run. David Riley ices his own player in his class to get a turnover out of that timeout. And it's just like, I don't know, dude. This was, the word that comes to mind is a collapse. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I think what did I say in my title? I think unravels unravels. That's just, and even before you get into they're up 4 with 2:31 to go. They were up 7 with, I think it ended up being like 6 minutes or something. They took a 7-point lead with like 7:06 to go. Yeah. And they scored 5 more points the rest of the game. It was Glass had the driving layup that put him up 7. Heck, they were up 8 at one point when Hildebrandt hit the 3, but they take a 7-point lead with 7:06 to go. And they scored 5 points the rest of the game. After that, it was a 17-5 run from San Francisco. And, it was just, I think, a combination of a lot of things. It was the turnovers. They started giving the ball away. They were getting beat up on the glass. And then I thought they settled for some tough threes rather than taking the ball to the hole, which, they were shooting the ball well from 3 yesterday, but they also were attacking well, and they were getting inside. And, what Riley said after the game is, I think he was, he talked about the final decision to call the timeout. And what he said was he didn't like their spacing. There were a couple of guys on like the wrong side. I haven't gone back to see, what exactly he's referring to, but obviously he saw something he didn't like. But, it's tough because if Glass claimed, that was a deep 3. It wasn't like, he stepped like right at the line and had, 30. It was a deep 3. So if he clangs it, it's all like, oh, thank goodness he called the timeout. And not to mention Glass had been pretty cold in the second half, just 3 for 9, 0 for 3 in the second half. But my thing is, and I think a lot of coaches have this, is there are coaches who firmly believe in a situation like that, you let it play. That no non-negotiable, you let that play out. And certain coaches say, no, we are calling a timeout to get set. And I think that's now twice this season in which he's done one or the other, right? Because remember the Bradley game, he let it play out with Glass on the bench, and there was criticism of that. So I think it's just you have to pick one. And I get what he's saying, that he didn't like the spacing, et cetera. I get where he's coming from there. But I do think to where you were looking at, San Francisco was still getting back. They had 2 guys on the other end of the floor after the Legend Smiley dunk or layup or whatever it was. And then I think the other problem is then you come up and the out of bounds or whatever you drop out of bounds. And I'm not saying, he obviously wasn't saying, hey, Jerome, go pick up your dribble with a 7-foot guy standing in front of you. But just, I think it's compounded by just how atrocious the sequence was out of bounds, where they don't even get a shot off. And they didn't need a 3 there. There was, I think, 15, 20 seconds left. Get a quick 2 and foul. It's 1-1. San Francisco shoots sub 70 at the line, although yesterday they were pretty automatic. But, take the foul, play the foul game. And who knows? Maybe you get a layup, they miss the front end, and you're down one with 12 seconds to go and a chance to get the ball up the floor. Not to mention, if you, I don't know. I just think there were a lot of possibilities that could have played out in that way, and I think the way it happened. And again, I'm not saying Riley drew up the Morton whatever that last play was, but I think there were alternatives to certainly. Having to try and force up a three, which is what he was kind of eventually doing.
Here is where I'm at with that last sequence. Like, I don't follow anybody. Like, if you are someone who says that, like, okay, that was a terrible decision to call the timeout, like, I'm not gonna go crazy arguing against that. Like, he's your best player. Yeah, he was gonna blow up for a really, really extraordinarily deep three, but he said it himself on the radio. Like, he's a guy that usually likes to trust his guys to kind of just do their thing. And especially because that was kind of the situation where you would do something like that, where it was like kind of off a miss and guys are a little bit scrambled. The spacing was, it might not have been favoring WSU, but things were kind of scattershot, which is the situation where you would want to let something like that happen or kind of play out. But he calls a timeout, which I'm like, okay, you don't want to do that, but to me, what is far more inexcusable, what is far less excusable is what happened after that, which is what you mentioned, which if that's what you're going to do, like, okay, I might not agree with calling the timeout to ice out your own player, but if that's what you're going to do, you got to get a good shot after that. You cannot end up with what they ended up with, which was not even a shot. It was going to be a contested three that ended up being a turnover and free throws the other way. So I just think that he's just like, I just think that Riley's in this like weird, like he's still learning as a head coach. I'm not like making an excuse for him, but you could just tell based on the way he's handled these late game situations, even going back to last year where they struggled in the same way last year. It's like, if part of the portrait that is starting to come together of your team is that you're struggling to close games, it's like, well, that's an issue, obviously.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, and I think, I think part of the other thing to consider in this is there a point where you just, on that last possession, I don't think Glass touched the ball.
Yeah, you got to get it to your best player.
And I'm not knocking on Morton. Morton has been excellent lately. He's shooting 54 from three during conference play. He has been, he leads the conference in true shooting percentage in WCC play. He has been really good.
Yeah.
But Ace Glass has been a different level of player. We're talking about,
he's their best player. Yeah,
he is their best player. He's one of the best players in the conference in terms of scoring. Like, he's got to have the ball in his hands in that situation. And now, in fairness, I do maybe see the argument if you want Morton starting with it. He's a veteran guy. You're trusting him to maybe make the better decision. Glass maybe gets a little sped up as a freshman, but I just think the ball's got to be in Glass's hands there. And I think, just again, it was everything that could have gone wrong from the last few minutes did. From the turnovers to somehow, you leave Diaz-Graham open for that three in the corner that makes it a 1-point game. Because they get a stop there. They got the ball up 4 with 2 minutes left. They're probably in good shape. And lo and behold, and look, Diaz-Graham is not a particularly good shooter, but he was hot yesterday. He's a 30% shooter, but he was hot. And you can't, if a guy's hot, you can't leave a guy open like that, which I think adds to the frustration, right? You get torched by two guys who are not particularly good shooters in Wang and Graham. But that's the game of basketball.
There's still yeah. I actually wrote this down. I didn't realize that Diaz-Graham came from Pitt. He shot 41% on threes and 24 at Pitt. And last year's 37% in ACC play. So it's not like this guy just like coming out of the woodwork and just like sniping. You know what I mean?
He just hasn't been a big volume guy. That was his career high in threes.
Yeah, which if he's wide open, he's also. You know what I mean?
It's not like this is a guy who's had 5 career threes and just is getting red hot. Wang's not a great percentage shooter, but he shot he took 105 threes last year. Like, he's a good enough shooter to where you can't just. And I don't obviously you can't leave him open with the last Graham shot. He was way too wide open, but a lot of those shots in the first half, like. I thought they were defending. I mean, they were forcing San Francisco in the first half to a lot of jumpers. Wang was hitting contested threes. Graham hit a couple contested. You had the one from Abosi that like hits the rim, dies, and just falls into the hoop from the corner. It's like, so I think for some of that, but then, there were some of the struggles inside. You couldn't keep Fuchs and Gigabaria off the offensive glass. You got beat by the alley-oops, but I think, and I do wonder to some degree, we talked a lot about how they were putting up a lot of threes late in the game. Riley said something after the game. He was obviously frustrated with how things unfolded, but he made a point of, they had 46 points in the paint and 3 free throw attempts. And he said something like, I don't know how that happens. And, I think it is an interesting, you don't shoot any free throws in the second half. And I don't remember anything like egregious, but I think there's always a line of what should be called a foul versus what could be called a foul. And I think maybe his frustration was, they're not getting those calls going to the lane. Did that scare them off of attacking in fear of, San Francisco was going to be able just to swat it away, foul, etc.?
I think a lot of the points in the paint came from just like post-ups, which you don't get a lot of fouls on.
Right, I agree. I totally agree.
Okafor. Yeah, I don't know, man. Like I just think the bigger issue is just like, when we last talked, maybe it was the one before, they were, and I wrote about this dude, they were number 4 in preventing offensive rebounds, and a week later number 4 nationally in the country.
Yeah.
And right now they were number 16, which like, okay, you play Gonzaga and St. Mary's, you're probably going to drop a little bit. But USF had 10 offensive rebounds for 14 second chance points. And
right.
6 of those came on at least 6 of those came on 2 threes. Right. So it's
in fairness, Fuchs and Gigabaria are really good in that. That's basically all Gigabaria does. He's 7'2". All he can do is, he just kind of reaches up. And with him in specific, there's just, you don't have a guy that tall.
Well, yeah, I was like about to bring up like that. I think that when you look at what they did on the portal going into this year, they don't have a rim protector. Like they don't a lot of times they're relying on Andy Okafor, who's like a great defensive player. He gets a lot of blocks, but he's not particularly like athletic, can kind of rotate over at the last second and get up and block a shot. A lot of times for that kind of situation, you're relying on like Emily Alaho or like, so, you know what I mean? Like guys that's not their role. And all of a sudden, that's who's rotating over on the backside. It's like, well, that's going to be an issue against a team like USF.
I think they missed Thrasterson and Favors in this game because, Thrasterson's one of their better defensive rebounders. Favors has actually been pretty good at it this year. Plus, he's long. I think they missed those guys. And, Endy was not a good defensive rebounder until this year. But, like, at the end of the day, he's 6'9", 6'10". He doesn't have, jump out of the gym athleticism. When a guy's 7'2", there's only so far in the air you can get, right? It's at some point he's just taller, and it limits what you're able to do in terms of that. So, that I don't necessarily fault them on the defensive rebounding. And either he's going to be Gonzaga's Gonzaga, right? Like that's what they do. And then, San Francisco, again, you look at those offensive rebounds. They had 10. All right, well, 30% come from a guy who's 7'2". So,
yeah, I guess like what I was saying is that like with what they have right now, that's a tough matchup for sure. But there's a way to prevent that, which is like find someone like that on the portal. You can bring somebody in there that because that's like they've done pretty well on the glass so far, but as we've seen in the last few games, when they run into a team, Gonzaga may be an outlier because of just, Ike is unreal and whatnot. But I just like whenever they run into a team that has, just a big dude like that, it's like they can't do anything. Which they're doing their best. I'm not faulting the effort or anything, but like with the roster construction and like roster design, there are ways to get around that.
The only reason I would kind of disagree is when you look at the St. Mary's game. And they've got McKeever and Wessels, and it was only, it was 28% on the offense. 8 offensive rebounds. You can live with that number. So,
I'm not saying that they've just been totally beat up, but like when they have had issues, that's like usually where it's coming from.
No, that's for sure. Yeah, that is definitely something that then the good news for them is they the next stretch of games that shouldn't be as much of an issue, but also there's. It's kind of the one thing that's been their saving grace at times is just how good they've been on the defensive glass.
Yeah.
And, I'm not ready to like say, okay, this is now officially a concern, because I think, again, there's some extenuating circumstances for these last couple of games. And again, I think once you eventually get Thrasterson back, that'll help. But definitely something to monitor as you go into the next few games of, okay, can they continue to keep teams off the offensive glass? Now, San Diego, terrible on the offensive glass, 301st. Pepperdine, 271st. Seattle U, 322nd. Portland, 246th. Oregon State, 329th. And then Santa Clara is 11th. So these next 5 games, which I think are, as key to the season as anything, you have the opportunity. You got to keep those teams off the glass. If those teams start to beat you up on the offensive glass, then it's cause for concern, is what I would say.
Yeah. I also, as far as just the way they're playing goes, I just think that they need to. It's weird because we've heard Riley talk a million times about trying to simplify things and I overcoached this or I overdid this. It's well, it keeps happening, because I remember I actually wrote this down after the LMU game. The quote was, or one of his quotes was, it's really hard to think and play in this offense at the same time. And that's fine. And that may be, but when you have a bunch of guys that are new to the system and, it's taking them some time, whether or not we think that's the right way to go, that is the case. And so when you're in a situation late in the fourth quarter, it's I think it comes down to who do you trust more in that situation? Do you trust your guys to go out there and make a play? I get it. Ace Class was, a million feet behind the 3-point line. But I just think at some point you have to put them. It's coaching is all about putting your guys in the best position to succeed. And I don't think that's what unfolded.
No, I think there was definitely, and look, at the end of the day, there's also the aspect of the players have to make plays, right? He can draw up everything perfect, and like we were saying, it wasn't his play call to have Morton do that. It wasn't his play call to have, Ace dribble off his foot in some of those last possessions or Morton throw the ball away. So there is that aspect. I'm sure it wasn't in the play call to when they double team Tyrone Riley in the corner and have him trapped. No one to be taking Legend Smiley streaking down the court, because that trap, they had that trapped perfectly. He had nowhere to go without, and I don't think San Francisco had a timeout at that point. So at that point, he is trapped in the corner where either he's going to throw it out of bounds, he's going to fall out of bounds, but you can't let the guy streak down the middle of the floor like that.
That was bizarre. How do you lose a guy? Because when he caught the ball, there was nobody around him. There was no one even kind of running behind him to try to catch up.
And they were lucky that Smiley didn't go try and dribble that. And he could have killed 10, 15 more seconds probably. There was no one close. Granted, at that point, you don't want to put yourself into needing to make 1-on-1 free throws. But, it just to me, if that play is covered, that's probably a turnover. You're probably getting the ball back. So it's some of the little things. And I wrote about this earlier. There are the things that still come with all right, the unfortunate side of the game of basketball, right? San Francisco's a bad free throw shooting team and they shoot 83%. Gigabaria is 25% on the year and goes 2 for 2, right? Fuchs is 62%, goes 2 for 2, including the one on that ridiculous alley-oop and one. He had a few.
Sorry, go ahead.
But I was saying, but that's the game of basketball. You can't rely on, teams are going to have good shooting days from the free throw line, right? We just saw St. Mary's go 100%. And, and look, it doesn't help Wazoo in any way that teams are shooting 75% against them from the line. You can't control that. There's a million other things you can control within the game to where that stat doesn't matter. And, you look at the 3-point defense, 36.5% against 39.4 in conference play. And as we were saying, there was a couple tough threes in that game. There was the Abosi one that, just rolls in. Wang hit a couple tough ones, but there was also a couple where Diaz Graham is wide open, and
And the thing about those is when you go back and watch some of the shots that they generated that ended up being wide open, and I hate to single a guy out like this, but part of it is because Simon Hildebrand just cannot move very quickly on the floor because he has to be on drop coverage, which is a fine, and we can debate the if that's smart or not, but he's slow enough to where that's kind of the ball screen coverage, which forces Parker Garrett's to like defend two players at one time, and all of a sudden he's like getting back, and it's a wide open. You know what I mean? So like,
right.
I just think that there's some almost like personnel issues that are leading to some of these wide open threes. Because the other ones. Sorry, go ahead.
Some of that's injury related. I mean, some of that is. Yeah. I mean, you don't have a wing right now. I mean, the fact of the matter is, Yalaho and Ubo are stretch fours. ND is a 5. Hildebrandt's a stretch 4. You have 3 like true wings on your roster. They're all hurt.
Right.
So that does mess with things. And look, I'm not trying to. Injuries are part of basketball. Has Wazoo been bit by him in an unfortunate way in the last couple of years? To some degree, yes, for sure. I mean, obviously last year, but. That you're saying, there's a personnel aspect. And I think part of what is hurting them with that is the guys who you'd have to take on, those closeouts. I mean, is Art Thrasterson or Vavers, and you don't have them right now. Or even Case Wynot from a size standpoint is more of a wing. Whereas right now, basically your entire roster are bigs and point guards. And it's really stressing the importance of having a true wing. And it's like, of all the guys to lose when you're already down Thrasterson, I mean, outside of probably Glass, Vavers was one that you really couldn't lose simply from a positional standpoint of you don't have a 6'6", 6'7" guy that can get in and out the way those guys can.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just speaks to one of the bigger issues holding this team back is that I think a lot of guys are just miscast. And right now it's like even to an extreme degree where, like you said, and like bigger guys like Hildebrand and Yoaho are having a guard like 2s and 3s sometimes because of just like they don't have those guys are out of the lineup right now, which that's not what they were supposed to be able to do. And as much as that's just kind of the way the game goes, it's like when guys are having to kind of do things that are outside of what they were brought here to do, it's like, well, there's it's not going to go swimmingly all the time.
I think the other thing is too, and just kind of to wrap up probably with this game is. I think probably, another source of frustration is you tell Wazoo before the game, hey, you're going to hold Tyrone Riley and Ryan Beasley to 2 of 7 from deep. You're probably feeling pretty darn good. And then you see 8 of 9 from Wang and Diaz Graham. And that's just, again, you can't let the other 2 guys go off and have those kind of games. And, or if they do, you've got to completely eliminate everyone else. And they didn't do that with Fuchs. And Beasley still had 13 and 6 assists, even if he didn't torch them the way he did in March.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, defense is all just about giving something up. Like the higher levels you go, especially in the NBA, it's okay. Like we're gonna have to give something up. What is the best thing to give up? And a lot of times you play the percentages, and that's what you decide to give up. But it's like, well, when those guys hurt you, they hurt you. The problem is the guys that hurt you are not bad at all. Like I just mentioned, I mean, like Diaz Graham shot 40% a couple of years ago at Pitt, and power forward play, and I mean. Wang's a career, 39% from 3 this season. Like you know what I mean? Like
that was a lot lower for yesterday, mind you, but yes.
For sure. Like, I don't think he's going to go 4 for 4 again this season, but like the form looks good. He's getting 5.
He just went 7 of 9 versus Pepperdine. He can do that. I mean, it's not
right.
Again, it's not all right. The 17% 3-point shooter suddenly erupts. I mean, he's been able to do that, and he's. All 4 games they've played San Francisco the last 2 years, he has had some a little extra for Washington State for whatever reason. Has had great success against the Cougars just in terms of his statistics. But
he hates the Cougars more than me. Can you believe that? You never thought you'd meet someone that hates them more.
But no, I mean, but ultimately, it's you can't win giving up 53 from 2, 54 from 3. Again, 83 from the line's out of your control, and then a 37% offensive rebound, right? That's just you can't win that. I mean, Riley said yesterday, 80 points should be enough to win on the road, and he's absolutely right. 80 points should be enough to win a lot of games. That stat line I just read isn't going to win you many games.
They're just so inconsistent. Like he said after the Gonzaga game, like we regressed, and I feel like that continued again on Sunday.
Right.
Like especially like on the glass, man. Like I get that they have a 7-1 or 7-2 guy, but like some of this is just like effort and execution. And I mean, this is a highly winnable game. Like we talked about going into this tough 3-game stretch. Like, okay, like you might not be able to beat Gonzaga or St. Mary's, but see if you can pick one up on the road against USF and then kind of go into a softer part of the schedule with some momentum. Now you're having to figure out, hey, how do we stop or how do we turn around what has been a strength for us for almost the entire season? That's what I think. Like if there's one stronger criticism to be had of a David Riley WSU team so far, it's that like the consistency has just never really been there in all kinds of categories, whether it's rebounding or closing games in particular. Like it's just like there's just not been a whole lot of consistency in a lot of different departments.
I mean, these next 5 are huge. You run these next 5, you're 8-4 in conference play, and you consider San Francisco. It's because right now it looks like that 4 spot is going to largely be San Francisco Pacific, and then someone's going to have the opportunity to jump up and compete and maybe battle with one of those teams, right? Portland's 3-5 as well, but I don't think anyone's overly taking Portland as a threat. I mean, they've got a couple nice wins, but Oregon State's also 3-5, but Oregon State is so unbelievable. I mean, inconsistent. Now, they're what works for them and Pacific is they only have to play Gonzaga and St. Mary's once, which is, boy, wouldn't that be nice? But San Francisco still has Gonzaga twice. They've got Santa Clara twice, and they've got St. Mary's again. Then they play Pacific twice. So the opportunity is there. Wazoo's got 3 games left against the 3 Titans of the league this year, 2 of which are at home. If you can, look, let's say you lose those 3 games, Santa Clara, Gonzaga, St. Mary's. And so let's say you win the next 5, you're at 8-4. You lose those 3 games, you're 8-7. Those other few games, that's Pacific at home, that's LMU on the road, that's Pepperdine on the road. If you can win those games, you are still looking at a very realistic chance to go 11-7 in conference. And this is we're not saying they have to go and beat Gonzaga to do that. All you have to do is beat sub 100 KenPom teams. That's it. Yeah. And the best team you face of those, or the best teams you face of those, are Pacific and Seattle U, who are 117 and 125, and those are both home games. It's extremely realistic that they can do that. The question is can they stay in enough of a rhythm? Can they be consistent enough to do that? It's not impossible. Again, we're not saying they have to do this. They've got to beat teams who are roughly in the same ballpark as they are. They're not going to be overmatched by, at least talent-wise. They're not going to be matched with athletically, physically. It's just going to come down to, can you execute against those teams? Pretty much every one of those games, you're going to have the best guy on the floor with ace glass. Can you make that and turn that to your advantage and win those 7, 8, 9 games, get yourself to that 11-7 mark, and suddenly you get a bye to the quarterfinals of the WCC tournament. I don't think anyone's going to say, no, they're going to make a run and win the WCC tournament. But if you can finish 11-7 in conference play, that's another, 8 wins. You're at 16 wins. You probably at least have a shot to play postseason basketball. Whether, maybe not the NIT, but, one of the other tournaments, which is a good step considering where this season started and hopefully something you can build on for next year. So there is still plenty to play for in that regard, even if it's not the NCAA tournament. And again, finishing 4th in the WCC sounds a lot better than finishing 8th. So can you string together those wins? And this stretch, I think, tells the story. They need to go 5-0 in this. They need to win the next 5 games. At bare minimum, 4-1. Some basketball's weird things happen, but 5-0 should be the belief. And I don't want to say expectation, but it's a very doable thing to go 5-0.
I also think there's like a sense of optics that Riley and company would do well to turn around. Like I don't think that he's going to get a 3rd year. Like I don't, there's there's the whole Fire Riley thing, and I get it. There's frustration, and rightfully so. Like that was kind of a blunder at the last 2.5 minutes of that game. But I also, I think he just needs to win back a sense of goodwill from the fans in order to go into year 3, because year 3 is kind of make or break. Like if this happens in year 3 and things are going to get out of control, then things are going to get dicey. But I think if they can turn around the optics and make people have a little bit of belief because right now, at least like on social media, there's like no confidence in his ability to like close games or get real consistency out of his guys. So I think like whatever like positive optics they can extract from the rest of this season is almost as important as winning the games themselves. So yeah, we will see where the rest of this season goes. But yeah, they're at San Diego on Wednesday night, which also another weird quirk of the schedule. Like they have these games in like close-ish parts of the country, but they're not really that close together. Like last year, they played Pacific and USF on like a Thursday and Saturday, and like later in the season, they play like LMU and Pepperdine, but it's like a Wednesday, Saturday kind of a thing again.
Well, that's
like,
the thing. I mean, I don't know the answer, but did they come back for 2 days of class? I mean, I can't imagine.
You don't think so?
I mean, you fly out. Let's say the game gets done like 6 last night. You fly out at 7. You get back to Poland by 9:30 or 10. I mean, you go to 1 day of class and fly out again on Tuesday.
Well, also there's also no class today either for MLK Day. Yeah.
It's funny. I knew it was MLK Day, but it's been so funny since I've graduated. Like there'll be times where I'll be on campus like, wow, no one is here. Oh, it's Veterans Day or it's MLK. It doesn't compute that like a no school day. No, then if that's the case, there's no way they came back because they'd be flying out tomorrow anyways. So I have to imagine they stayed down there, or flew from San Diego to San Francisco. I mean, that would seem,
it's also
that would seem insane to fly back and then literally turn around, and especially if there's no class today.
Yeah. Well, that's a big. I'm glad you mentioned like forgetting that it was MLK Day almost because of like we just don't get days like that off. And this profession,
I mean, it's a standard day. Like
like today's is Monday. I mean, honestly, like we all support MLK Day. I'm not trying to say that
at all. Yeah. It's like for us, it's just a. The world of sports journalism doesn't stop for holidays or weekends. No. I mean, that's just
I think there was one time maybe last year or so where usually you and I would park in the Smith parking lot to go up through the gym and go into wherever we're going. But there was one day, like I think it was last year sometime, where I just tried to open the door and it was locked. I was like, oh, today is whatever, Veterans Day or whatever it was.
Oh, I've had that happen a million times. It's like,
I was like, oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's funny. Yeah. Cause it's all every day now there's no it's just, all right, today's Monday, Tuesday. So it's,
well, and I kind of feel like I'm like still getting back into the swing of, okay, today is Monday, today is Tuesday, because like the stretch of like the bowl game to like the new year, that was just such a weird
Everything
time.
Gets thrown off when it's non-football because football is such a like designed out schedule. Whereas like basketball, you could have games they play Gonzaga on a Tuesday in a couple weeks. I think by the end of the year, they'll have played on every day of the week at least once.
Is that right? Oh my God.
Yeah, Monday. I mean, unless I'm forgetting.
Also, I don't think they had any Sunday games last season.
I think
you can look.
No, they didn't. The WCC tournament that doesn't count.
Oh, okay. But no regular.
Right,
season.
They did not have a single Sunday game, and they only had a couple Friday games. And did they play on a Tuesday? Okay, the only Tuesday game was in one of the holiday tournaments. So it was I'm looking forward to hopefully with the Pac-12 next year getting back to Thursday, Saturday. You're at home for both of those, and then you're on the road for a Thursday. Maybe there's a Wednesday or a Sunday in there, but this, and I don't like this schedule of a home and road in the same week. I think that puts a lot on the players of like just the travel back and forth, or like this where you get a Sunday and then a Wednesday game.
Yeah, like it just makes me wonder, like, what are they like if they did indeed just go to San Diego right away? Like, what are they doing for like today, for example?
Right,
like you're just like going to the beach, like.
Or then after San Diego, they have 3 straight at home. Go to Corvallis, like they play Portland at home on Saturday. Go to Corvallis on Wednesday. Come back to play Santa Clara. I mean, they have a road game after that. It's Spokane, so that's obviously not as big of a deal, but. It's just it's weird, these one or the 1 game weeks, the 1 game bye weeks that they seem to get, where like, like San Diego only played 1. Well, actually, they played 2. They played an exhibition essentially against Bethesda on Saturday.
Yeah, what What was that about? Is that like a D2 or like
that was like their Bethesda's I think like in the National Christian College Association.
Right.
I'm guessing that was like kind of their quote unquote Saturday bye, where you play the midweek and not the weekend game. That's what Wazoo has coming up when they play Gonzaga in a couple weeks on Tuesday. But San Diego said no, we want to stay in. We want to just get a game on the schedule. So it's like their top I think their top three of their top four scorers didn't play and like classified as injuries, but like I'm sure they were a little sore, but if it was a D1 game, they'd be playing kind of thing. I wouldn't expect. I think Adrian McIntyre, Juanse Gordosito, and Tyler Johnson. I would be stunned if any of them weren't playing on Wednesday. I'll put it that way.
I almost fell out of my chair when I saw the spelling of Tyler. Is it Tyler? How do you because it's literally just like TY-LAUR.
I think it's Tyler. I mean, he was at Wake last year.
Yeah.
I mean, he started like every game at Wake or most games at Wake, and then was at Louisville. But I mean, he's a high volume guy. Say that much. I mean, he's taking more shots and he's used on more possessions than anyone else in WCC play. So.
I've never seen a name like his. Like
that's a new one to me too.
And that says something because I spent a million years in the Mormon hub of the world in Idaho, where there are all manner of insane. You want to know the craziest one I ever heard was I was still living in Idaho Falls like 4 or 5 years ago, and there was a soccer player whose name was Connor, but you want to hear the way of spell? Kohner.
That's a new one. I mean, that is a new one.
Oh my God. It's unbelievable. So yeah, that takes the cake, but this one's not too far off. All right. Okay. I think that's good for basketball. Like I said, they're at San Diego, another ESPN Plus game at probably like 7:00 on Wednesday.
I think it's 6:30 maybe.
Let me just look real quick. 6:30. You're right.
6:30. Yep.
Okay, so yeah, that is what they have coming up, and pretty important 5-game span for them coming up. Okay, let's change gears a little bit and talk a little bit of football. So our last episode, we got the majority of what at the time was like 24 or 25 guys that they had added in the portal, but since we last spoke, they have added 5 more guys, at least that we know of.
There's a new one.
When?
Came in like 5 minutes ago. Maximus McCree.
Oh, are you serious?
Uh-huh.
Oh, well, tell us about him. How about that?
He's a transfer from a school called Washington.
Oh,
where he started 8 games over the last couple of years at left tackle. I think battled some injuries. He's played at JUCO. He's played at Maryland. So another veteran offensive lineman to add to the mix. Big guy, 6'6", 302. So yeah, I mean, just more depth.
Do you know like what spot on the offensive line he played at?
He's always played left tackle. So that'll be interesting though to see, because on paper it doesn't seem likely that someone will unseat Ashton Tripp.
Right.
Whereas right tackle feels a lot more open, considering Caldwell only started 2 games last year. You've got Ta'aga, you got Thorpe, you got Falealo, and potentially you flip McCree to that side.
Interesting. Okay, so that's crazy. That literally just came across. It's nuts. All right, so six total, which brings them to about 30 out of the portal. Then maybe 1 or 2 off. I don't know. Depending on how
26 now with if you're including JUCO guys. I think it's 29. Or 29 excluding the JUCO guys who signed with Rogers, so Sosa and Heckard. So 26 straight transfers, Wartson, McKendry, Martinson.
All right. So 29 total. Yeah. Okay. 29. That's a good number. And then the other, so I guess that's one of the 6 new ones. Let me just run through the other 5. First one, in no order particularly, is Jordan Dees. He's a receiver from West Georgia, which actually has only been a D1 team for like 2 seasons now, which is crazy. The next one is a DT from Eastern Washington, and I'm gonna get his name right. So don't wait. I got it. You got it. Jaira Liao Pepetele.
That's what I would have said, yeah. Or Jira.
Okay, beautiful.
Jaira or Jira Liao Pepetele, yeah.
All right, perfect. Because you're all on top of like the Polynesian pronunciation, so I feel like I got a
time around this school. You have to become familiar. It's been a long-standing tradition of Polynesian players here.
Yeah, he's massive. 6'3", 322.
Oh yeah, that's a space eater inside. That's a big boy.
Okay, then the other three. We just have some unbelievable names in this class. Elmo Wardson is a cornerback from Modesto College in California. Another cornerback, Kamari Terrell, is played at Texas State last season, started his career at Oregon, spent 3 years with the Ducks, and went on to start the last 8 games of this last year at Texas State.
They're bringing back like the 2022 Oregon team. Keith Brown, Jaleel Tucker, Kamari Terrell.
I didn't even think about it that way. That's good. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then the very last one, which we'll get into all these individually, but the last one is Kololo Taaga, offensive lineman from Utah, then also started at USC his freshman year. So right when we were kind of starting to worry about like, hey, they need to bring in some offensive linemen? What do you know?
Here's your answer.
Do just that, yeah. So why don't we just kind of go through each of these 5 guys, I guess, well, now 6, and kind of give some thoughts on them. So why don't we start with actually, let's, what was the name of the guy that just came in, you said?
Maximus McCree.
Maximus McCree, okay. How much did he play? He must not have played a whole lot of UW.
He started,
or maybe you did
4 games last year. I want to say started 3 games last year. Started 5 in 2024. Excuse me, started 5 in 2024.
Oh, wow! Okay,
including the bowl game. I think battled some injuries, and then their right tackle is back. They brought in a pretty big name one from Sam Houston State, so he was probably going to be a role player, rotational player for him this year. But I mean, again, we're talking about a guy with 8 Big Ten starts. I mean, so there's something to be said about that, and a guy who, 2-time junior college All-American, was. This guy was offered by LSU a couple weeks ago. Let's put it that way.
Oh, is that right? Oh my God.
So we're talking about a guy who was, and obviously I think. Maybe not to start at LSU. There's obviously, different levels to certain offers, but, I think at bare minimum, he's a guy who will provide really important depth and potentially compete for a starting role. Again, we would think on paper, Tripp's probably the left tackle, but it's a new coaching staff and
right.
They might have a different idea, or McCree will flip over to the right side. Battle with some of the guys there, but they certainly have plenty of depth now on the offensive line. I mean, they already were in pretty decent shape just with all the retention, but again, you get a guy now who, whereas Taaga is more of an upside play, you're hoping he becomes kind of a comp or a solid offensive lineman. McCree has proven that he can play at the D1 level, at the Big Ten level. You're thinking, okay, there's a pretty good chance he can come in and contribute or, earn a role.
I was going to say, if he has that much experience at that high of a level, it would seem to me, at least like without knowing much more about the guy, that he could really push for a meaningful role next season.
Right.
Because
is there a possibility that he would even slide inside, battle for a guard spot? I mean, I think this opens up a lot of opportunities, whereas Taaga is almost certainly going to be a tackle again at 6'7". And there's not a ton of experience. I mean, McCree has played enough football to where you probably feel like, okay, he can battle for a few roles in here.
Yeah. I also, I'm not much of an offensive line coach, but I also it's weird because the tackles seem like almost interchangeable, but the guard to tackle does not work. I'm not interchangeable. I'm just saying it's more so than guard to tackle, I should say.
That's probably fair. I mean, it's. I think it was Andre Dillard, a former Cougar offensive lineman, who said is, flipping from left to right tackle, especially if you've played one for the bulk of your career, is sometimes like trying to write with your other hand. And it takes time to really master. And it can be done. I mean, it certainly can be done. But I think, he was asked on the fly, before one game, switch to the right side. And he said, it's just not that simple of, because it changes all your footwork. It changes, which hands you're using. So Now, granted, you get the guy in here in January and say, hey, we want you playing right tackle. By August, September, you feel like, okay, he can probably get it down. But no, I think definitely a guy who you probably could see as a possibility in a lot of different spots.
Speaking of former Cougs that are in the NFL, we have two going to play for a spot in the Super Bowl, which is crazy with Abe Lucas and Kyle Williams on the Patriots. Did you see what, speaking of Abe Lucas, did you see the clip of him that came out from I think it was the Seahawks page, and somebody asked him the best place to eat in Pullman, and he said in Moscow.
Well, at first he said that hurts. But the offensive lineman kept Gambinos in business for a while because they would all go there and order 7 dishes, and so I know the boys from back then, especially like the early 2020s. Lucas and Liam Ryan, and even going back to like Josh Watson and so on. They loved Gambinos.
Oh my God, I can only imagine. What if you're like a worker at Gambinos and you see a bunch of like 6'5" guys walk in? You're like, oh baby.
You're thinking, all right, I'm taking home a good tip tonight.
Yeah. Well, even more so now that they're actually getting paid, at least publicly. So, all right. Anyway, let's move right along here to, oh man, I got to say his name twice in a row correctly. Jaira Leao-Pepitele. All right. I'm getting it. There we go. He reminds me of Akil Martinson almost, who we mentioned on our last episode, is a DT from American River College, where it's just guys that are just like freaking huge dudes, and they're just like classic like interior guys that are going to try to just like stuff the run and use that giant frame and to their advantage. Like I said, he's 6'3", 322. Last season, he actually never started any games at Eastern, which like I don't know if maybe that was a function of like just having awesome guys ahead of him.
It's also, as we saw, the starter isn't always the most important thing. I mean, there were games where like Angel Johnson would start, but it would be Kirby Voorhees' backfield kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, he does. I mean, he played 574 total snaps, at least on defense, across 3 years at Eastern. So no shortage of experience. Last season had 18 tackles, 1.5 for loss, half a sack, and a PBU. What is with all these like DTs that randomly have like pass breakups that they've been bringing in? This is insane.
You stick the big paw up and hope someone throws it into it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, who was... Oh, it was Paul Hudson that had a pick 6. Is that?
Yes.
That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah. Gosh.
86.4 run defense grade for Leao-Pepitele on PFF. I mean, that's...
Wow.
That's called the space eater.
Yeah, totally.
17 run stops is what it says.
Right? Is that a PFF stat too? I don't know if have I seen that. Okay.
Yeah. For reference, the only DTs with more last year on Washington State were nobody. Oh wait, Lamb had 17 as well. Excuse me.
Oh, okay.
So other than that, yeah, something of note.
Well, yeah. Well, the more you know. Between him and Akil Martinson and Paul Hudson, who I guess can play in both spots, Ike Okafor. I'm trying to think of the other DTs that they've added.
Blaine Miller,
yeah.
Sione Posse as a walk on, and then obviously you've got Beatty and Elijah Tucker back.
Yeah, but it's like we've said it a million times, but for all the players that they lost at that spot, and they're 2 starters. I mean, they've done about as well as you can do to replace those guys. I feel like
absolutely.
So okay, we can move right along here. Moving on to Elmo Wharton. The first thing I'm going to ask him when I meet him is like, is that your birth name, or is that just like some nickname that somehow stuck along the way? But he is a cornerback from Modesto College. I think that's actually where he's from too, Modesto, California. This is great. He's 6'3" as a cornerback, 6'3", 185. He actually had offers in the portal. So this is added up to a big time recruiting win for them. He had offers in the portal from Baylor, Mississippi State, Boise State, Fresno State, Cal Poly, UConn. And I believe he took visits to Pullman, Boise State, and also Fresno State. So this was not some guy they kind of just like took a chance on and didn't have much competition for. I mean, this was a pretty sought after guy. Last season, 36 tackles, six PBUs in 10 games. So what do we think of Elmo Wharton?
I mean, you got to like the size and you got to like, kind of the pedigree of who else offered him. I mean, when you're talking about SEC schools and Big 12 schools and a couple of your future Pac-12 foes kind of getting involved, certainly makes him an appealing get. And I think a guy who, again, you look at the size, 6'3" at cornerback, it's hard to pass that up. It's hard to ignore that.
They brought in almost an inordinate amount of cornerbacks between him, Jaleel Tucker, Jalen Thomas, a guy that we're about to get to, Kamari Terrell. That makes 4. Jay-Sean Froster-Ramos, who might be playing safety as well. I don't know. I think on you guys' side, yeah. So that, I mean, the 6 cornerbacks, dude, that it seems like a lot. I don't know if that's maybe that's just they're going for depth, I guess. And I mean, when you lose your top 2 starters like they are, that's not it's a smart idea. It seems like a lot. I don't know. Is that kind of the way it seems to you, or I don't know if that's how you feel.
I mean, you lost your top few guys. I mean, so I think there was a need for it, and I think it's a good balance of guys like Terrell and Tucker have 1 year, but then you have some younger guys who have multiple, where you have Frosto Ramos and Solis Lamar and Jalen Thomas and Wharton for potentially a couple years, not to mention Bryce Heckard. And then, but when you look at what you returned, Rapola, Smith, Gibbs, and Cuckoo, there's very minimal experience at Wazoo. Rapola played a good amount of Cal Poly, but, you're talking 1 start for Jamari Smith at Wazoo, a few other snaps here or there. Same thing with Gibbs. Cuckoo did not play this year.
Yeah. So, yeah, we just mentioned Terrell. Moving on to Kamari Terrell, 6'1", 195 is what he's listed at. Played this season at Texas State. A member of the 2022 Oregon Ducks turned Washington State Cougars all-star team. He actually, this is weird. He came off the bench for the first 4 games of this last season at Texas State, but then ended up starting the last 8. Wound up with 36 tackles, 3 PBUs, and 1 interception last season. Played pretty sparingly at Oregon. I would imagine that's why he chose to transfer to Texas State. But another guy, we mentioned a bunch of times, guys that could have gone on, almost anywhere they wanted out of high school. I mean, class 22, he had offers from LSU, Florida, Clemson, Mississippi State, Baylor, USC, and a team that I wrote down that I cannot read my own handwriting right now. So that team will remain a mystery, I suppose. But yeah, I honestly would not be surprised at all if he starts week 1. He seems like a guy that with the experience and size, he seems like a guy that will end up making an impact.
Yeah, I mean he's a guy who played 10 games as a true freshman at Oregon, and it kind of comes down to a lot of times the way Oregon kind of does business is they recruit over their own recruits. I mean, they bring in portal guys and. I'm not saying, that's wrong. That's just how they do things. I mean, they very often will bring in the best transfers because they can. But, he played a role, and obviously that role kind of decreased. But again, 606 snaps this past season at Texas State. He actually Terrell's played against Wazoo, did so in 2020, I think 2023 on special teams. Actually 2023 and 2022 on special. So he actually has a tackle at Martin Stadium back in 2022. Also took a penalty in that game, but playing special teams. So, but a guy, I think you make a good point. Very well could be one of the day 1 starters just with that experience.
It is kind of crazy how many of the guys they're bringing in have made impacts at Giesa Field, Martin Stadium. Between Frosto Ramos, you just mentioned Terrell. Who else am I blanking on right now?
I'm pretty sure Tucker played when he was at Oregon.
Jaleel Tucker, yeah. I wonder if Thomas played when they played San Jose State a couple years ago.
I think this was his first year, really seeing the field. I don't think he played.
I think you're right.
Let's find out though. We got PFF right here. I don't think he played as a freshman. No, he did not play at all as a true freshman. So
okay, well at least he might have been in Pullman at the very least. So
maybe traveled.
Yeah. That's kind of a weird, weird wrinkle almost. It's the way they have brought in guys that have somehow already made impacts at the field they're going to be playing other.
Well, I mean, Clemens didn't play in Pullman, but his first career touchdown came against Wazoo.
Oh, when he was wait, what? Wait, Clemens?
At Oregon State in 2024.
Oh, yeah. What was because that was his one of his 3 touchdowns. Two. Okay. Wait, what? Do you remember like what the play was or like what happened?
It was the play to tie the game right before Kyle Williams fumbled in the 4th quarter.
Oh, so that was okay for sure. Oh my God.
Also, if we're talking about guys who made an impact on the Martin Stadium field, Jack Peterson, Matthias McLean is probably one we ought to mention considering he's probably made the biggest.
We talked about that in the last episode where where the Cook fans that are listening to this might not remember the player who was responsible, but they remember the play. And all of a sudden you look back like, hey, this is the guy that's going to be suiting up for your team now.
Peterson also played a snap against Wazoo in 2023, but it was in Los Angeles.
That was, I remember that game. Do you know, man, now I'm thinking about the Rose Bowl. I must have walked around that stadium like at least twice trying to find the credential booth because it was kind of confusing to wear. But that was still probably my favorite venue that I've been to for all these games. Really beautiful place. Let me be the millionth person to say that about the Rose Bowl. Okay, wrapping up here with the portal guys. Kololo Taaga, like we just mentioned, offensive tackle from Utah/USC. Speaking of guys that are massive, 6'7", 325 is what this guy is listed at. I mean,
that's a big boy.
That is unbelievable.
That's a hoss.
His parents must be like 10 feet tall. Did not play at USC in 24. That was his true freshman year. But then 19 snaps in 2 games last season at Utah, 16 on offense, which came mostly in garbage time against, I believe, Cal Poly. Plays right tackle, which we already kind of talked about, is where Jalen Caldwell is. But if there was one of the tackle spots that would be up for grabs, it would definitely be that one. If either of them are, just because of how little experience Caldwell has. I mean, he was a fine fill-in right tackle, but just played really minimally before also getting hurt against Virginia. So yeah, we'll see. I think that was like, as far as like position groups go, that was the one where going in, I was like, yeah, I don't know. They should probably bring in like 1 or 2 pieces like we mentioned. And before you know it, they have. So, okay, last thing on football here, then we'll get out of here in a few minutes. The quarterback situation. Julian Duggar re-signing. This is actually, I was almost like kind of irritated in like a really selfish way because it came across right before the Gonzaga game.
Right.
Here. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. So yeah, Julian Duggar back in the fold for 2026. He was like one of the very last guys to make a decision. And we were kind of wondering like, hey, where is he going to go? Is he going to stay or leave? He's kind of getting late in the portal window. But he is back, and it seems like he's going to be battling Cade Pinnock for the starting job next season, is the way it would seem. You also kind of look at I think we mentioned the last episode, like, would Pinnock have come here if he was like not promised something? I don't know if they were like, hey, you're going to start day one, but I mean, I don't think he would have come over here without some sort of like role, ascribed to him. But also it's like, Julian Duggar's throwing 19 total passes as a college quarterback.
Right. I mean,
so I don't know.
There's obviously something I would think that the new staff sees that he can be, and there is incredible agility, athleticism. We saw some of that on display, and maybe they just think even at his very worst, it's a gadget, type deal where he can be, a wildcat quarterback. You can flex him out, have him play some receiver, get some carries. But I respect Duggar for saying, you know what, I'm going to stick this out in battle. I don't think many people would have blamed him if he had said, I'm going to go closer to home and find a place where I know I'm going to start. But he wants to compete, and he's going to have. I think he'll be given that opportunity. I mean, I don't think they're going to just hand the job to Pinnock. I think obviously they think very highly of him and that he's got a good chance to win that role, but I think you're going to probably see a legit battle unfold.
I think I think we would both agree that Pinnock will end up starting, but I don't think that means that Duggar has to be out of a role on offense though.
Agreed.
Because we saw him line up, I think he had at least one catch last season where he kind of just runs this kind of short kind of out route and looks like he's maybe the craziest athlete on the team in terms of just like pound for pound. twitchiest, has good size. Like he's a crazy athletic guy. So I think that like you can't let that talent go to waste. Like you have to. I think there's a role for him, whether it's a quarterback or receiver or running back. There's all kinds of things you can do with a guy like that. But there's also, you know, what I also wanted to bring up was Owen Eshelman could also like figure into the QB situation in some way. I also, and this is kind of what I was thinking about too, is that like in years past, just because a guy stays on the team, that was not news. He's just on the team. But now there's like an intentionality. Is that a word? Intentionality to re-signing and coming back, which you wouldn't do that if you thought you were never going to get on the field.
Right. You know, he would just leave. So I think obviously they said something of to a degree of, you know, there's a possibility.
Yeah. And I'll be excited to see kind of what because I feel like I just we haven't seen much of what he can do. I mean, we see like fall camp practices, but still has not played a snap of college football. So that will be exciting to see. All right. Is there anything else that you want to touch on that we have not gotten to yet?
I think we covered it.
All right. Yeah. So like we mentioned at the top, basketball is back in action on Wednesday at San Diego, 6:30. Football, they're probably kind of getting to the end of guys they're going to be adding. I know the portal is closed now, but that does not mean they can't. That's just for guys that are entering. They could still add, you know, however many players in the days to come. So with that, we will get out of here. Thank you guys for listening and tuning in as always. And Jamey, I will talk to you next week.